Hey, get ready to learn some effective Bible study skills. At the end of this beginner Bible study walkthrough, you will know how to read the Bible better, number one, and you'll learn what real wisdom is according to Proverbs chapter 1 in order to recognize wisdom in every area of your life. So let's read Proverbs chapter 1. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon. So the king of Israel here is giving Proverbs. He's the son of David, the king of Israel currently as he's writing this. So he says, to know wisdom and instruction. The Proverbs he's writing allow people to come to know what wisdom is and instruction, okay? Notice how wisdom and instruction are separate, though they are connected. Wisdom actually instructs us on how to live a life that honors and pleases God. But we need to be instructed in wisdom, okay? Wisdom is offering itself to us all the time. Wisdom is crying out in the streets, as we'll see in chapter 2, right? But whether or not we'll be instructed and hear the wisdom that's crying out and come to know that wisdom is an entirely different matter. All right, so instruction and wisdom come together, though they are distinct, to understand the words of insight. Right, so in other words, he's going to talk about Proverbs, riddles, and sayings, and these different ways of relaying wisdom carry insight. Solomon has insight into the world that he wants to share with those who actually want to know what wisdom is. So you have to ask yourself, do I want to know real wisdom? Am I willing to receive instruction? Do I desire to understand words of insight? Because that's what wisdom is. Wisdom almost is the key to understanding where wisdom is crying out in the streets or when wisdom is speaking. The more wisdom you have, the more you'll be able to understand when wisdom is speaking, discern wisdom's voice, and actually recognize wisdom when it's presenting itself. Okay, so he goes, I want you to know wisdom. That's why I'm writing these Proverbs. I want you to be instructed. I want you to understand words of insight. I want you to receive instruction in wise dealings. We have to understand that if we want to deal wisely in this life, be as shrewd and cunning as serpents, but as innocent as doves, if we want to learn how to walk in the wisdom of God and deal wisely, we need to receive instruction on how to do that. The underlying assumption here is that I don't inherently have the wisdom all on my own, independently of God. I don't have that wisdom to know how to deal in life and make decisions that honor him. I need to receive instruction, and wisdom is offering that instruction. It's like wisdom is saying, hey, let me come and instruct you on how to live the wisest life in all your dealings. Now look at the three different characteristics of what wisdom is here. He goes, I want you to receive instruction in wise dealing, comma, in righteousness. When you notice a list in the scriptures, pay careful attention to it. Meditate on that list. Meditate on what different things that list, the components of that list have in common, right? Justice, righteousness, equity. What do they all have in common? Well, they're consistent with the character of God. These are things God desires for his people. These are things God desires for humanity, for us to live uprightly in a way that is right and approved by him in righteousness. That's how kings should rule. He wants us to live with justice, right? Kings should rule with justice and equity, right? There's this desire to be all-inclusive and fair and make sure there's, we're not showing partiality, right? We're equally distributing the wisdom and love and the gifting and generosity and abilities that we have to everyone. So wisdom is actually going to be described as righteousness, justice, and equity. To have either of these, right, is to be wise. These three seem to come together as one beautiful list. If you're like, what's wisdom? How do I live wisely? Wisdom is saying, God is speaking through Solomon to say, live righteously, live a just life full of equity, right? To have one without the other is to have incomplete wisdom. In other words, if you ever see one of these missing in your life, in your decision-making, you're probably not operating in true wisdom. We need to be instructed on what righteousness, justice, and equity is, and we'll see that laid out in the scriptures for us. God describes those things as being consistent with who he is, number one, and he gives us clear definitions of those things, right? So his desire is to give prudence to the simple. Now, simple here is simply someone who lacks the instruction and the wisdom and the understanding to deal wisely in life. In other words, they're someone who lacks maybe the definition of righteousness, justice, or equity. They don't know how to live righteously, justly, or full of equity. So they're lacking what wisdom is offering, instruction on how to do that. So Solomon wants to give prudence to the simple, okay, knowledge and discretion to the youth. It's helpful to note that simple and youth here are pretty much the same kind of person, one who is youthful in their understanding. They're childish, they're immature in their thinking, right? Solomon wants to give prudence and wisdom to one who is youthful in their thinking, childish. We need to grow up in our thinking, and they're simple-minded, right? And it seems like wisdom is the difference between someone who is mature and someone who is simple, right? Knowledge and discretion. This idea of discretion is discerning. Knowledge is necessary to effectively discern, right? So if you don't have knowledge, then you can't effectively discern between what is good, what is wrong, right? What is right, what is wrong, what is good, what is evil, right? What is light, what is dark. Discretion, discernment here is being prudent in our thinking, considering, meditating, being thoughtful, reasoning, thinking critically because of the knowledge we've gained from wisdom, right? And so verse 5, it says, let the wise hear. Wisdom here is, attributed to people who are willing to hear and listen to what wisdom has to say, and increase in learning. Those who are truly wise apparently are wanting to increase in learning. They're always students. People who think they have enough wisdom to no longer learn and they have nothing else to learn, they think they've mastered wisdom, actually prove they're not wise at all. Wisdom, it's like this. They say the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. The more wisdom you gain from the scriptures, the more you realize how much more you need God to teach you. So wisdom is being willing to learn. It's desiring to learn. It's having a heart posture that says, I'm hearing, I'm listening, and I'm willing to increase in learning, and I want to. It's someone who is always learning. So we need to learn how to define wisdom, not as some place you arrive at, but as a heart posture we have either, periodically throughout the day, ebbs and flows of life. Sometimes we have it, sometimes we don't. But we need to learn how to define wisdom properly. Wisdom, of course, is described by these three characteristics, right? Wisdom provides instruction. But wisdom is also having the heart posture to listen, to hear, to receive instruction, and to be a student all the time. And the one who understands obtains guidance. Someone who is wise listens because they want to be guided on the right path of life. Okay? Guidance means I don't inherently know how to lead my own life. I don't know where to go. I need someone to lead me. And that's where God comes in with his wisdom. And he says, well, if you understand, you'll obtain guidance through the wisdom that you hear and receive. Right? So wisdom guides us. It's a kind of guiding force God is offering people. He's going, hey, you don't know how to live life? Let me help you. Listen to the wisdom I have. That wisdom will guide you in your life and help you to do what is wise in all your dealings. Right? So the one who understands obtains guidance. Understanding here, again, is being willing to increase in learning, hearing wisdom when she speaks, when she cries aloud, right? Wisdom is personified in Proverbs as a woman, a wise woman. And the one who understands obtains guidance. If you want guidance for your life, be willing to receive wisdom, regardless of the form it takes, and regardless of the vessel that it comes through. If you prefer a different vessel, too bad. God is offering wisdom through the vessel that's right in front of you. To understand a proverb and a saying, the words of the wise and their riddles. So I highlighted these three things: riddles, proverbs, and sayings. They're essentially three ways that wisdom is offered. Think about the way that Jesus spoke when he came, into the world and he ministered. During his 3.5 years of ministry, he spoke a lot in riddles and parables and proverbs. He was offering wisdom packaged in a proverb or a riddle or a saying. And the people who wanted understanding and sought understanding got it. They asked Jesus for it, they received it. But without the wisdom God provides and the understanding he gives, we can't effectively open the packages of proverbs, saying, and riddles to obtain the wisdom that God is offering to us through those things. Now notice verse 7. It says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. So I want you to really take note of this word beginning, okay? It's almost like the first step into true knowledge Another translation will say the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Wisdom. The first step to effectively be a wise person and to start growing in wisdom, to deal wisely, to gain guidance, to have instruction on how to live, is to first fear the Lord, is to actually revere him properly. And you're going, well, I can't fear him if I don't know him. Exactly. The scriptures show us who God is, allow us to know him. God is revealing himself to us through his word, not as the only, but the main way of revelation. He's revealing himself to us through his word, and through that knowledge comes a proper fear of the Lord, which is reverence, awe, respect, right? To stand in reverence of God and to admit that he has all power and authority to do as he pleases, and to admit that he really is who he says he is, to get to a place where you fear him. That's where you are now positioned to have knowledge properly. A lot of people have knowledge, but they don't wield it properly. Therefore, they have knowledge, but they don't have wisdom. Wisdom is properly applying and implementing knowledge, right? This is the data, right? So to effectively have wisdom and apply this knowledge, you need to fear the Lord. It's as if fearing God here provides the framework for how to apply knowledge properly. Fearing God provides us the first step into beginning to understand the world properly from his perspective. Okay? So the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. For those that want knowledge, for those that want understanding, seek knowledge in his word, and as you know God, you'll properly understand and discern the world he's made. Now look at what he says right after this. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. So contrasted with the person who fears the Lord, we have the fool, okay? You know what the fool does? The fool actually despises the wisdom found in fearing God. Real wisdom is fearing the Lord. The fool don't want to fear God. The fool is autonomous, independent, thinks he knows everything, thinks he needs no one else, and he's willing to do whatever he wants recklessly to get what he wants. He despises wisdom. He rejects it. And the instruction that wisdom offers. Okay? So notice again how wisdom, right here, offers instruction. There's always an opportunity for us to grow in wisdom, and it's called being willing to be instructed and being willing to fear the Lord even more, and being willing to lay down our lives in conformity to what he says. In other words, fear of God, the best way the Proverbs explains it, is admitting that his way is best. And I'm conforming my life not just to who God is, but to what he wants for my life. So this is Proverbs chapter 1, verse 1 through 7. And in the next video, we'll look at verse 8, and we'll see where we can go from there. But I hope that you have a better understanding on how to appropriately read the scriptures. And I hope you've gained a couple skills along the way, or at least developed the skills you already had. And you know what wisdom really looks like now according to Proverbs chapter 1.